catch him, that we can bring him to justice.
Police say 49-year-old Pedro Argote allegedly gunned down Judge Andrew Wilkinson Thursday night in his driveway, just hours after he awarded custody of Argote's children to his wife. Police finding Argote's SUV in a wooded area about 8 miles from the judge's home. The search now focusing on vacant homes and buildings in the area. Security measures around Maryland raised as more judges face threats in recent years. Funeral service Sunday for a Detroit synagogue president found fatally stabbed outside her home. As authorities investigate a motive and search for a suspect, they say there is no evidence that it was a hate crime tied to anti-Semitism. Samantha Wall, remembered as a community leader dedicated to building bridges. She was also a former aide to Democratic Congresswoman Alyssa Slotkin. Authorities say Wall's body was found near her home Saturday morning after someone called police to alert them of an unresponsive person on the ground. While her murder leaves many unanswered questions, police say the public needs to be patient as investigators examine all available evidence. Egyptian media reporting a convoy of 17 trucks bringing aid to Palestinians crossing into Gaza. Right now in Gaza, more than 2 million Palestinians rationing food and drinking dirty water. Hospitals say they're running low on medical supplies and fuel for emergency generators after territory-wide power blackout. The Hamas-run Gaza Health Ministry says the death toll has reached nearly 5,000, while more than 14,000 are wounded in Gaza. Over 1,400 people in Israel killed, mostly in the initial attack October 7th.
In those areas, but all the demonstrations remained very peaceful. We didn't see any kind of clashes or anything like that. For now, reporting live in Piedmont Park, Eric Mock, Fox 5.
All right, Eric Mock following the latest. Thanks so much. Well, Israeli military struck a mosque in the West Bank overnight, which they say was being used by Hamas to plan an imminent terror attack. The conflict is also expanding across the region after Israel targeted 2 airports in Syria and launched multiple strikes in southern Lebanon.
We'll deepen our attacks. We will minimize the dangers to our forces in the next stages of the war.
Israel says they will continue to take necessary action against any rocket fire from Lebanon or Syria. The Pentagon plans to send more air defense systems to the Middle East to protect U.S. forces in the region. Well, back here at home, first responders
for in the presidential race, he's never made it to the debate stage, and he's saying that the RNC is corrupt in part because of that. How do you see it?
I think he's right. The RNC is corrupt. But secondly, I don't know what the debate stage means anyway. I mean, frankly speaking, this election has been over from the start. And so that he didn't make the debate stage is no tragedy. It's just what is. None of them have actually made the debate stage, only Trump.
So considering this, the world is shifting. Things are changing very dramatically, especially in light of the Israel-Hamas war. Have you seen anyone come forward from among the other candidates to distinguish themselves, in response to what's happening?
No,
Okay.
Not really, because, politics is such a game of rank ambition that I think that basically they all have thinking about themselves. And I think the public sees that. I mean, right now, I've been doing this roller coaster for epic times, and the roller coaster was initially an idea to add a little bit of levity or, comedy a little to this whole thing because it goes on forever. And now I'm going to be doing more of it, but the comedy's gone. I can't make jokes. I just can't do it.
Yeah, I mean, it's horrifying, really, when you really face what's happening, and I understand that. We do have some candidates, though, who've had very ardent support for Israel. For example, Nikki Haley, she was always been very intent on, defying Hamas, and has she not distinguished herself in some way? How do you think she?
Well, I guess you could say that, but it's that's a return to neoconism in general, and I think we have to have a little dialing down of war. Not. I think Israel needs to be backed up 100%, but I'm saying that Nikki sounds to me a little bit like we're back in the Dick Cheney land, and I don't think that's the answer. Right now, we have a possibility of world war on our hands. We've got if China jumps in and goes after Taiwan, I don't know what the world is going to do. Maybe we'll have to all get on Elon Musk's next rocket ship and get out of here.
So when we're looking at Trump's polls, he's still very high, and everybody else is lagging far behind. Why do you think the other candidates continue to run when it seems that they don't have a chance?
Well, the grimmest way to phrase it, which I have, is that they're like vultures flying above Trump, hoping that something will happen and they can swoop down. I mean, that's the unfortunately the most logical way of looking at it. I think were I DeSantis, which I'm obviously not, he's the leading other candidate, clearly, for a long time. He should go to Trump and tell him he's willing to go for the vice presidency. Let's run together and get this thing over with, and try to unite the country and deal with issues far greater than the me of primary politics.
You're on the road, as you mentioned, for the presidential roller coaster series, and you're about to interview Doug Burgum, who's not doing so well in the polls. What are you expecting to speak with him about, and what do you?
Well, I'm going to ask him the hard question: is why are you doing this? Because he's got to have a good answer to that. There are several answers. One of the macabre answer is I'm one of the vultures. The other one is I want to call attention to myself for 2028 or something. But other than that, I don't know what a good answer is. I'm going to be doing it at the Republican Jewish Coalition's annual leadership conference, which is it starts at the end of this week. And that is going to be an interesting event in and of itself because of what's going on in the world. I mean, how are all those people going to respond to people marching in the streets of New York in favor of Hamas?
Looking at the candidacy right now, all the candidates, who do you expect to drop out next, and why would you say that?
Well, that's a funny question. I really don't know the answer to that. I think that has to do with money, and there's been a lot of rumors that former Vice President Mike Pence is out of money and has been lending his own money to his own campaign. So maybe he will be the next to go, but I don't think that's necessarily so, because he's running his campaign on hatred of Donald Trump, which is not a very good way to run a campaign, but that's what he's doing. And hatred is such a strong emotion that it may keep him in the ballgame.
Right. Looking forward, any overall insights for what you expect going forward in this whole campaign?
Now you're asking me to be Nostradamus, and frankly, if you look at the history of Nostradamus, he made a lot of errors. He's over.
Right. Fair enough. Yeah, it's all just prediction, and at the moment, we'll have to wait and see. Thank you so much, Roger Simon. Always great to hear your thoughts.
Thank you.
Coca-Cola has removed a post on its website that supported Black Lives Matter.
BLM members have drawn criticism for their apparent support for Hamas.
An archived version of the webpage shows Sprite voicing support for BLM in 2020. The Coca-Cola subsidiary also appeared to pledge a $500,000 donation to the group.
A current version of the webpage omits that information. According to archive.org records, the company changed the page on October 20 and 21.
The deletion came after Senator Ted Cruz referenced the Coca-Cola webpage, linking its support for Black Lives Matter to backing Hamas.
A Texas Republican said the company had been, quote, caught red-handed after the page was altered.
Is the sun setting on environmental, social, and governance investing, or ESG?
Data shows that ESG is showing signs of significant decline in the U.S. Now, here live to tell us more is NTD Business host Don Ma. Don, welcome. Are we starting to see ESG disappear from the investing world?
Well, Steph, I think I can say with a degree of certainty that it's showing signs of decline. At the very least, the term ESG is not as it once was. Some are even saying that the market for environmental, social, and corporate governance investing is fundamentally broken. And Steph, here's some data points that show a potential decline for ESG. I mean, the numbers speak for themselves here. The total flow of investments into U.S. ESG funds has been zero to slightly in the negative, actually, since the first quarter of 2022. This is according to CNN data. And in the U.S., assets under management in ESG funds actually declined $24 billion from the second quarter to the end of September. So those are just some points for your reference.
Why are we seeing a decline when just a few years ago ESG was so popular?
Well, when something is flawed, it's only a matter of time before people start to realize it, and it just falls apart eventually. So the problem with ESG is, first of all, that its scoring system doesn't work. ESG company gets a score, but it doesn't actually tell you anything meaningful about the overall company. And on top of that, companies can actually game the system in various ways to get a higher ESG score, even if the company is actually not that good for the environment. Sometimes you have a fracking company getting an A+ on the environment, and you have a company like Netflix getting a D- on the environment, or you can have an electric car company like Tesla getting a lower ESG score than an oil company. It just doesn't make sense.
So how does ESG investing perform in terms of returns?
Well, to put it simply, ESG funds perform poorly in financial terms because according to a paper in the Journal of Finance, University of Chicago researchers found that the highest rated funds in terms of sustainability actually did not outperform the lowest rated sustainability funds. And I'll just add another point here, Steph. Another problem with ESG investing is that it actually makes no difference to the environment. Some companies simply rebrand by adding words like sustainable or ESG or green or climate to their names, but actually do nothing for the environment. If you want to be an environmentally responsible investor, there's only one way to achieve that goal. According to investing services and solution company RIA, you actually have to invest directly in private startup companies that focus on climate-related issues.
All right, thanks so much, John. Great to hear.
Yeah, thank you.
Coming up, a major iPhone supplier in China is reportedly facing a tax probe. Two unnamed sources say the news was leaked to influence Taiwan's elections.
A close friendship between Taiwan and Lithuania. That's what Taiwan emphasized while receiving the parliamentary speaker of Lithuania. We have more details on the visit soon when we return.
Did you know African elephants could become extinct in our lifetime? In fact, more than 90% are already gone. If we don't act now, they will disappear forever. But we can't do it alone, because when it comes to saving elephants, it's you plus IFAW, the International Fund for Animal Welfare. You plus IFAW together can help stop poaching, protect habitats, and save thousands of elephants. Call or go online right now to join IFAW.org and give $19 a month, only 63 cents a day. You can save elephants and the places they call home. Together, we can fund rangers to stop poachers in their tracks, protect the land elephants need to roam and survive, and provide loving care for those who've been orphaned so they can one day be released back into the wild. But the only way we can do this life-saving work is with you plus IFAW. So call or go online with your gift right now. With the monthly support of people just like you, elephants like Moses are alive and thriving today. It takes years of hard work from dedicated teams so orphaned elephants can learn the skills they need to survive in the wild. So please, call now or go online with your monthly gift. You can help provide the urgent care elephants need so this generation won't be the last. And when you use your credit card, you'll get this exclusive membership kit, including your very own IFA t-shirt to show it's you plus IFA standing together to help rescue and care for these majestic creatures. The danger for elephants is more urgent than ever before. That's why we need you. It's going to take all of us to help save elephants before they disappear forever. So please, call right away or go to joinifa.org with your monthly gift, because together, you plus IFA can save lives.
Introducing NutriBullet RX. NutriBullet RX uses breakthrough smart extraction technology to break down and open up foods like never before, giving us the most nutritious superfood drink ever, and get back to being healthy and well again.
My stomach issues literally went away.
My shoulder pain has gone. I was able to sleep better at night.
I've lost 100 pounds.
During this TV offer, you can have the complete NutriBullet RX system rushed to your home for just 6 payments of only $29.99. You'll also receive this amazing bonus, the NutriBullet RX Hot Soup Maker. Just place it on the base, and the NutriBullet RX switches into soup mode to make hot, delicious, nutritious soup in an instant. You can have the complete NutriBullet RX system for just 6 payments of only $29.99. We'll ship the NutriBullet RX system right to your door for free. That's right, free shipping.
Thank you for staying with us. Accusations fly between China and the Philippines after a collision in the disputed waters of the South China Sea.
Chinese vessels blocked Philippine boats from providing support to forces in the area. Here's that story.
Armed forces of the Philippines released this video showing the Chinese vessel grazing the hull of the Philippines boat. The collision occurred during the Philippines' resupply mission to troops stationed on a rusted World War II-era transport ship used as an outpost on the shoal. China's Coast Guard said they were lawfully blocking the boat from transporting illegal construction materials to the warship. Manila responded by condemning in the strongest degree the dangerous blocking maneuvers of the Chinese vessel. The U.S. sided with the Philippines, offering support to its ally. In a statement on Sunday, the U.S. State Department said China's actions amounted to repeated harassment in the South China Sea and that they were dangerous and unlawful. Beijing claims sovereignty over almost the entire South China Sea, including parts of the exclusive economic zones.
Xi Van Fleet, a survivor of Mao's Cultural Revolution and author of the upcoming book Mao's America, A Survivor's Warning, is sounding an alarm for Americans. She says with the recent protests that we've witnessed in the United States, that those who justify the violence of groups like Hamas today, they can easily become the Hamas of tomorrow. We speak with her now. Hey, Xi Van Fleet, thanks for being here.
Thank you so much for inviting me.
So, first off, I want to step back a bit and look at the bigger picture. With the Cultural Revolution, you warned about a normalization of violence. What did that look like?
Well, that did not happen overnight. It took decades. In China, in Mao's China, it took about 17 years after they took over the China from 1949. And then they had 17 years to indoctrinate a whole generation of young people. And they were led to believe that there are two kinds of people in the world. One is oppressor, another is oppressed. Sounds familiar? And the oppressed are the victim, and the oppressors were the villains. And what you do with them. Anything you do to the oppressor is called resistance, is justified, and that includes violence. And that's what happened in the Cultural Revolution. And who are the oppressors to the Red Guards? the teachers and the principals. So the very first violence took place in China during the Cultural Revolution were not done by the thugs. They were done by a bunch of girls, young girls in the middle school. As young as 12 or from 12 to 16, they beat, tortured, and killed their principals.
Wow.
And that is the first one. And there's no consequence. After that, violence become not something that you justify. It's something you celebrate, and it's something you're encouraged to commit against the wrong people, the so-called oppressors. And of course, we haven't seen the real violence, but it's coming. Why? The first step is to justify the violence, and we passed that already. Now we're in the stage of celebrating violence, and that won't take long to take us to the next step.
I could see that. I mean, do you see similarities with the pro-Palestinian protests among students in the U.S. right now and what happened during the Cultural Revolution?
Yes, actually, I have a very good story to share with people. During the Cultural Revolution in 1966, and there is a month called Red August. Red because it's bloody. Many, many murders were committed during that month. And there was one particular massacre, and it took place in the county near Beijing, and it took place in 48 villages. And the Red Guards went there and killed up to more than 300 people, including babies as young as 38 days. You wonder, what kind of hatred is that? It's the same people, right? It's all Chinese. It's not Jews against Palestinians. It's the same people, share the same language, the same everything. What kind of hatred drove the Red Guards to commit that kind of atrocity? Ideology. The same ideology, that Marxist ideology, that violence is justified for the right cause. What's the cause? The cause of the Mao's Cultural Revolution to eliminate all the enemies. And so those people that killed were the people that were identified as the black class. They were, in old days, the landowners. Their land were confiscated, but still, the title would not go away. They're still the enemy of the states. So just think about it. And those are not really some kind of violent people. Those are people from the best universities and the best high schools. And they are from well-to-do families. So the evil ideology can turn them overnight into murderers.
And I think in America, a lot of people are shocked. You know, we're watching what we would assume are, you know, well-educated people, kids and so on, at, you know, Harvard University and Ivy League.
Yeah, Ivy League, yeah. And that's
they seem like they're celebrating violence in some ways as well.
Yes.
Do you see them being able to just turn around like the people in China did during the Cultural Revolution, the students?
It's not what I say. History proving, yes. You have to, first you have to accept, and you think it's okay, because you are fighting a great cause, and you justify everything. And what is that cause? The cause is to what? To resist colonialism, you know, whatever. You give it good names, and after that, you identify the oppressors and oppressed, the victims and the violence, and after that, anything is justified. And that's how people led to commit atrocities. People need to remember, it's not always the soldiers, you know, the thuggish people. It can be your neighbors. Because during the Cultural Revolution, the neighbors killed their neighbors.
Well, you know, on that note, one of the big buzzwords going around has been decolonization. What is decolonization?
Well, to me, it is no longer what you look at the term, and it's not what it looked like. It's really decolonization to me is to overthrow the Western civilization And that's what's going on in the universities. And those red guards are the result of their 17 years indoctrination.
Yeah, well, I think we can see.
And it's here. It's here. Yeah, we can witness it. We can witness right now on the American campuses and on the in American streets.
So we have about 2 minutes left, but you mentioned that one of the goals of you said it's not just about economy. You said it's also about replacing the culture, destroying it, and replacing it with Marxist ideology. Can you explain that?
Yes, the Chinese Cultural Revolution really is about transforming China, fundamentally change it. Changing in what way? To get rid of all what's in the past, everything that's traditional. And that's why we have the cancel culture in China during the Cultural Revolution. It's called Four Olds. Everything that's old needs to be removed to replace by this new ideology, and that is Maoism. That is the most radical version of Marxism. When that happens, we forget our past, and we don't have values because religions were all abolished. And then we become what? We become the followers of our new God, which is Mao, and our new religion, which is communism.
Yeah, it's frightening. I think we do see the beginnings of it. It's just, a lot of us are starting to see it. Go ahead. Sorry. Theory, CRT, woke gender ideology, hyperliberalism, being taught in the system before the pandemic, but many people thought that was just something just happening in the colleges. We thought it was happening in the universities and the more liberal cities at that. What the pandemic revealed, though, was that it was happening everywhere and at every single age level. There's been a lot of pushback to this indoctrination of our children from parents' rights groups and at school board meetings. We've heard some about this. But CRT still has not gone away. Now, as the Federalist reported, the new K-12 social studies standards being approved right now in Minnesota, for example, it shows that CRT is still being pushed by woke educators, but under different guises, and that goes back to kindergarten. Minnesota is looking to adopt an ethnic study course to its core curriculum, and you can see it here in the Department of Education's proposed permanent rules relating to K-12 academic standards in social studies from September of this year. Ethnic studies, well, it doesn't sound too bad, right? But if you take a closer look at the details of this program, you're going to see why it's concerning. One standard within this ethnic studies is resistance. And it basically teaches kids to look at things through the lens of America as being systemic and coordinated exercise of power, centering on those that have been marginalized, erased, or ignored. And it tells students to organize with others to engage in activities that could further the rights and dignity of all. Oh, sounds a little activist to me. Here are a few more examples from the commissioner-approved draft of the proposed standards that was released earlier that exemplify the different ideologies that our children are being exposed to. This is what's going to be taught to ninth graders if they do this. Quote, design an action plan to address the disproportionate impacts of environmental issues and climate change on different communities from local to national scales. Well, sounds like environmentalism to me, and that's usually a lot less about the actual environment and a whole lot more about pushing a political agenda using the environment. This is for fifth graders. Analyze anti-colonial and anti-racist resistance movements of culturally, racially, and ethnically diverse people throughout the world. It sounds a whole lot like the anti-racism language, for example, of Ibram X. Kendi. And that's a system of racism disguised as anti-racism. And as a side note, what is the difference between people that are racially diverse and ethnically diverse? Anyone? I don't know either. Last I checked, every single person is part of an ethnicity, and every person is racial. Doesn't matter what race that is. And here's what they want to teach sixth graders, by the way. They want them to, quote, examine the impact of slavery and race in Minnesota today. And that's interesting because, well, slavery has been abolished in Minnesota since Minnesota was a thing. In fact, since it became a state, there has never been legal slavery in Minnesota since it gained statehood in 1858. Pre-Civil War, by the way. But look, I'm sure it's very important for students from the impact of it in a state that never had it. And there are many, many more examples in these guidelines that typify the ideology of modern educators. And it's not limited to Minnesota either, by the way. Take Virginia as an example. Elementary school students were asked to role play as slaves and landowners. This sort of thing is what the new generation of teachers are educating our kids with. And no matter how much pushback parents give to this stuff, well, they still push it. And they do it in this way where they give it a nice-sounding name, something other than CRT, by the way, to sneak it in through the back door. And why, you might be asking, why is it so crucial for them to teach kids in viewing the world this way, in terms of race, gender, identity, power, class, and wealth? Well, we've seen numerous examples recently of teachers who are self-proclaimed non-binary or queer or trans or openly bragging about all these things on social media, including in how they're indoctrinating their students. So where is...
I really don't do anything unless I actually want to do it. And most of the time, I don't want to do anything at all.
So where is all this coming from? Why do we seem to suddenly have an epidemic of wokeness throughout our entire public school system? Well, the answer goes back a little bit in history, back to the founders of modern education. That's men like John Dewey, the quote-unquote father of modern education. Organizations like the Frankfurt School, which in turn have impacted the education program at Columbia University, which notably contains a teacher's college, and to influence really from the policies of progressive President Woodrow Wilson and others. To simplify a very long history, the educational system in the United States was changed from within. The men that had the biggest impact on modern public education, they had an ideology that was a predecessor to everything we are seeing today. And they were heavily influenced by Marxism, modernism, pragmatism, and the so-called Enlightenment. They were really pushed what was largely private, religious, and classical education systems in the U.S. towards being state-run, secular, and deeply modern. We don't have to look any further than the statements of John Dewey, the father of modern public education, who said this: "If we teach today's students as we taught yesterday's, we rob them of tomorrow." Simply put, the public education system was changed into a system where children were no longer taught how to think. Instead, they're being taught what to think. And that is part of why we see teachers today pushing ideology, because it is what the people behind the modern education system envisioned from the very beginning. Have we ever thought about this question? Why is the government in charge of education at all? Well, the answer is because the men that pushed education to where it is now, they did not believe that it should be private or religious at all. When philosophies like Marxism, existentialism, and critical race theory are in the origins, well, look, it's no wonder the fruit of that system is the way we're seeing it today. And it begs the question, what was education like before the heist took place? Well, the founding fathers were incredibly intelligent. They were very well educated. And that was before the system had been transformed. How were they educated, you might ask? Well, in one word, classically educated. Education for centuries before modernism and before John Dewey, it was rooted in the classical method. Learning things like Latin, actually studying history, valuing the classical liberal arts, and not discarding religion. Teaching a student how to think, not what to think. The exact opposite of the modern system's goal. Education became now about getting a job instead of being a well-rounded individual who is well-equipped to do anything. Look at the founding fathers. Some of them were literally farmers who were well-educated enough to found a nation with one of the most unique systems of government ever conceived. And that's pretty well-rounded if you ask me, but modern education would have you believe that the founding fathers, they're all racist and bigots and should not be looked up to in any way. modern education became about questioning and, in turn, breaking down traditional societal structures. The family structure has no value from this perspective. So why should parents have a say, for example, in their kids' gender identity? We've seen many examples of how schools will keep that a secret from parents because the ideology believes identity and progress comes above everything else. This takes over the school system, and it's why so many parents are taking their kids out of the public schools and either homeschooling or in many classically education systems, they're looking to other options. In
many ways, the world is more endangered today than it has been in my lifetime. So the question is America going to lead? I think the Biden administration sent the wrong signal when they had the disastrous withdrawal from Afghanistan. I think that was like giving a green light to Putin to go into Ukraine. And we see that Iran, the principal sponsor of terrorism, sending drones to the Russians and attacking Hezbollah, in this particular situation, Hamas, attacking the Israelis with drones. So it's all connected. That you can't separate out one part of it and say, oh, we're only going to deal with this. It's all connected.
So the White House is now coming forward with a $105 billion request, and they are linking all these things: Israel, Ukraine, Taiwan, the southern border. A number of your GOP colleagues object to that, but let's start with Senator Rand Paul. He says this:
our deficit this year will exceed $1.5 trillion. Borrowing money from China to send it to Ukraine makes no sense.
So what is your answer to that? This idea of taking money from somebody who doesn't wish us the best in all circumstances in order to pay for Ukraine?
Well, he's certainly right that the deficit is entirely too big. And it frankly was expanded during the previous administration as well. So I think neither side has done a very good job of dealing with the deficit. However, you have to respect the conditions that actually exist that are a threat to the United States. The Iranians are a threat to us as well. And so this is an emergency. It's an emergency that we step up and deal with this axis of evil. China, Russia, Iran, because it's an immediate threat to the United States.